Welcome to the Channel Chat podcast. Hello, I'm Marc Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have Bart Delgado, the CEO and founder of Akixi, in the virtual studio. How are you doing, Bart?
Mark, doing very, very, very well. Thank you very, very much for the opportunity to meet you and discuss Akixi with the channel.
Yeah, great. Well, for obviously the listeners that don't know Akixi and yourself, could you give us a bit about your background and what led you to sort of set up Akixi?
Yeah, Akixi, this is our second foray into this sector. Previously, Mark, we had another business called Swan Solutions. That had a product in the previous world of analytics, as it were, I'll explain further, called CoolView, and we took that through to a trade sale to a company called Intertel Inc., which was a NASDAQ listed company, and that was sort of 2002 time, so forth. That business was actually bought subsequently by Mitel, again a name that you're more familiar with, no doubt. At which point the golden handcuffs became lifted, as it were, and we then the stock options, as it were, they came off, and I told my business partner Martin, Mark, he's the brains, I'm the mouthpiece. He's the clever one, I'm the one that knows the people.
You're the showman.
Well, perhaps you told me that at the end. And I said to Martin, Martin, we had so much fun with Swan Solutions. I think we're going to do it again, mate. Let's do it again, bigger and better. Man. But this time, it's going to be cloud. Now, at that time, cloud, I mean, we're talking about 2009 now, after the exit and so forth. And in those days, cloud was like, you had the cross of Dracula put up against you. Cloud is bad, security. And to be fair, Mark, infrastructure just wasn't really there.
Right,
just wasn't there. So we were it was partly an infrastructure issue, but also partly a commercial issue. We were trying to help companies move over to the OPEX way of working. They still wanted to pay for their holidays and their cars and so forth using the CapEx way of working. And yeah, it was pushing stuff uphill. So that was the early SaaS days. But yeah, that's where. So in 2011, we launched Akixi onto the marketplace, and here we are now.
Was there a real reluctance? Obviously, cloud has, the digital transformation's really accelerated over the last 12 months. So hopefully, it's been a great time for you the last 12 months. But was there a real reluctance to sort of get the message out in those early days?
It was absolutely. I mean, we were always a channel play, and so our channel was the telecoms reseller marketplace. And the telecoms reseller marketplace was very accustomed to CapEx selling PABXs and associated products. And that's how people were remunerated. The teams were paid based upon monthly targets of this. You achieve that, you get the commission based upon that. And so we were saying, well, actually, you can achieve the same commission, but you're not going to get it in one fell swoop. You're going to get it over the next 3 years. And guess what? If you do a good job, you'll get it over the next 3 years and the next 3 years. But that was anathema to the channel at the time. So it wasn't the technicalities of cloud. Infrastructure was a bit of an issue, but the biggest issue that they all faced in transitioning was the move from CapEx to OPEX rather than the technology.
Right, yeah. So as we've had the rapid progression in tech, everyone seems to be working from home now, or they've had to because of the pandemic, the last 12 months. So do you think that sort of phase is finished now, or do you sort of see it for the foreseeable? And what I mean by that is, I was speaking to Jay McBain, who was an analyst at Forrester, and he came on the show and he said, Mark, 30% of people now have definitely got a different future of work. They're not going to ever return to the office. It's going to be, home working forever. We are starting to see offices maybe reopen and come back and try and get that collaboration back. But do you think that the phase is finished, or do you think it's going to be here for the foreseeable, just home working?
There's no simple answer, and no one's got a crystal ball. But I do think the world and people's work-life balances has been adjusted overall better this way. I'm not so sure anyone in commercial real estate is going to agree with me.
Yeah.
Things aren't going to go back. And I don't see us maintaining this 100% home working for the majority of us ongoing. I think there's going to be a bit of a mix. I think there's going to be some things that are better done at the office and some things that are better done certainly from home. Getting the work-life balance is much easier this way. This is a genie that's been let out of the bottle, and I think it's actually good for us, although it's a change that has actually been forced upon us to embrace. And I think that's a good thing. I do think it's a good thing. But as I say, I don't want to be in commercial real estate at the moment. And but that, you know what, that might actually give a great opportunity. I mean, this is completely off topic, but we've got a problem with residential property. Yeah, maybe the commercial, maybe there's too many offices and not enough homes. There's an opportunity.
What will you do in your office? Are you hybrid now? Are you back in the offices? Are you working from home? What are you doing?
Right, we have a couple of members of staff that are struggling to work from home because either in families that don't have the space. We've also, because we have a lot of young members of staff, we've got some that are literally fresh out of university, been doing an internship with us, come to work for Akixi, and all of a sudden they're sitting at home because they're no longer with their family where they used to live. So for them, coming in and speaking to someone and being interacting with someone in an office environment, it is a great thing. So, but it means that there's flexibility. So we've got a couple, 2 or 3 members of staff that prefer to be in the office and fine, subject to us actually putting in place good COVID procedures. I mean, for example, Mark, we've even deployed, we really have gone above and beyond that. We've got screens and so forth for those who want to come to the office, but we've even deployed proximity vibrators in the office.
Really?
Like you smile, but they're really effective. So what these things do, when you come into the office, you have to sign in so that we've got a register and so forth, but you also have to put on your belt a proximity vibrator. It's a little box. Turn it on, and when you come within 2 meters of someone else that's got a proximity vibrator, it tells you.
Wow. I've never, do you know what, Bart, I've never heard anyone have that. That's a first on Channel Chat. Proper singing with me.
Absolutely, but it's also an illustration that, I'm going to talk about, let's say, necessity being the mother invention. One company that's had these things probably on the thing for whatever reason before has now created a great opportunity. So, yeah.
What? Obviously, when you mentioned earlier about, with your business partner, you obviously sold out and you started doing it again. You must be nuts to sort of do another business. What motivates you to sort of, get up in the morning and start it all over again for the last 11 years again?
I would say at the time, I was a fair bit younger. So I had to do something. And in all honesty, I didn't do enough at the time to sit on the beach of the Bahamas doing nothing for the rest of my years, which is a good thing. Because it's too much too young can be a different problem. So, but I'm always striving for continual improvement. I'm always, I get on everyone's nerves. I'm always trying to figure out, okay, that was good, but there has to be another better way, another way of doing that. Whether or not that's in the things that I do privately or in business and so forth. So, yeah, you have to do something, Mark. You can't be sitting on the beach of the Bahamas doing nothing the rest of the day. I bet
your wife would want to, though.
Well, and maybe we will one day. Then was not the time.
Yeah. When you obviously starting a business and starting 2 businesses now, there must have been people that influenced your career along the way. Did you sort of seek out mentors, or was it family members, or what?
I have to say, Mark, this is one I struggled with, really. I didn't. I can't think. There's lots of people that have given me the odd little nibble of advice here and there that I've taken on board. But I don't look up to a Richard Branson or an Elon Musk and so forth. I might drive his car, but I don't. These people are brilliant in their own right, and I just literally thought my own way. So it's not a good answer to that question, Mark, unfortunately.
No, fair enough. So obviously in your career today, what have you sort of enjoyed most about working in the IT channel? Because you must have seen it all working in two different companies and for the period of time you have.
One thing that I love, telecoms is such a brilliant sector. It's constantly changing and evolving. Always, always. There's always something new happening. Not everything comes to the fore significantly, but there's always something changing. And I think with change, there are opportunities. One of my favorite definitions of luck is where opportunity meets preparedness. There are things that happen every day, Mark, that if we rode it correctly, we could, be up there with whoever you aspire to be. But it's being in a position whereby this train comes along and you think, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. Let's get on that one. And yeah, one day we'll get off, not necessarily destination, but somewhere on the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking of trains, obviously the journey that you've been on over the last 12 months, no one could prepare us for that. It's been pretty shocking for most people. Give me a bit of a synopsis of the last 12 months for you. How have you sort of adapted and prepared yourself personally and in the business?
No. So in the business foremost, we were in a very fortunate position. Literally, we'd deployed teams literally 2 or 3 weeks beforehand by coincidence.
Really?
Now, it meant that, it literally was. It was one of the things, as one of the just business process improvements, we deployed that. Now, that meant literally within days, pick up your phone, take it home, start working from there, and we'll put procedures and processes in place. I have to say, it's not a perfect world that way. There are 1 or 2 things that came out of the woodwork. Oh, hang on a minute, that hasn't transitioned particularly well and so forth. But yeah, it worked. And yeah, what can I say really? We've actually, Akixis also been a very significant beneficiary of that trend generally.
Yeah.
People would traditionally have looked at what we do as an analytics platform and put that, that's call or contact center and so forth. But a lot of businesses, having taken a similar step to us, look, pick up your phone, take it home, we'll work out from there. They then start asking, well, how do we know? We've got customer complaints. How do we know that things are happening where they should be? And so every business has realized there's an opportunity in seeing what's actually happening, especially when everyone's working remotely. And, we've seen, Mark, our growth. We've had 29% growth in revenue over this period. Fantastic. And we've actually increased the number of staff by 45% because literally the opportunities have been there and the demand. Yeah,
because initially I thought when I first looked at it, I thought actually was analytics like a luxury product when I first sort of started about it, because I thought it was people who had keep the lights on time, the first Q2 and Q3 last year, and I was thinking, would people be worried about analytics, or would they be worried about other important things? But now you've said that, I was surprised when you mentioned it.
It's interesting. This sector or this technology was originally it was a vital part of the call center. Absolutely, MIS people describe it and so forth. But what we've done is with our product, we've made it available to the masses at the lower end, and then, you can take it through to the higher end in the full-blown contact center and so forth. But people didn't even know such a thing was a thing. If you were just running an estate agency and so forth, you wouldn't traditionally have thought of, well, hang on a minute. Bear in mind, a telephone call into an estate agent can be quite valuable. But I'll give you some other examples. Like we've got, and again, I can't mention business names for obvious reasons, because they're not our customers, they're our channel's customers.
Yeah.
But, funeral parlours, they've deployed Akixi, not necessarily over this period, but seriously, I'm putting a little lightheartedness on a very serious thing. But if you miss a telephone call from someone that's having a very difficult time and looking to make arrangements, that could be a very, very valuable telephone call.
Yeah.
And so these things, it's like many things. NASA created the digital watch and so forth, right? But from that, so many other things come out.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the ways that we communicate at work have been in the spotlight since the start of the pandemic. What innovations have you seen come to the forefront over the sort of the last 12 months of lockdown?
Without a doubt, I mean, the big winner is obviously collaboration. Yeah, it really has. I have to say, I think pre-lockdown or pre-COVID, it worked in a way for some people, but didn't work brilliantly for most. And I think that's what's changed. And I think because people have been forced to do it, and the actual vendors have stepped up to the plate, they are working much more reliably and much more easily, really. You know, people, okay, we all get struggled. You've got your microphone off, or your video's not, you know, there's a little bit of that. But actually, you know, conference calls, in fact, like the one that we're having now, are generally, you know, much more easily. And maybe it's partly because we are more in the flow of how to press the right buttons and so forth. But yeah,
there's so many. The challenge is though, Bart, isn't there so many of them now? You know, like you've come on my platform today, which is great. You know, we started off, we had a camera issue before we started and all that sort of stuff and getting ready for it. But there's so many different ones now with Teams, WebEx, or whatever it is, 8x8, all the different platforms. Do you think there's still, you know, people have been forced to do it. Now lockdown's ending. Do you think people are going to suddenly think, you know what, I can't be bothered to do these video calls anymore. I want to go out and see people. And we sort of creep back to what we liked before?
All of the above. Actually, there will be a blend, but you'll have the great opportunity. And yeah, whatever's best for you. I mean, in the call center industry, you talk about customer is king. Whichever way that customer wishes to communicate with you should be a way that they can effectively communicate with you. And so I have to say now, I tend to find if I'm doing an invite, if someone says, oh, do you want to have a meeting? It does tend to by default go collaborative way. Although yesterday, you will just do your telephone call, especially if you're out and about. I have noticed maybe some of the larger corporations that we speak with being more averse to the video content of a conference.
Are they?
And I don't know if that's because they're being told you don't want people seeing what your toys on your desk are, or I don't know what it is. But so I'm thinking from the larger corporates, they're being a little bit more, let's try and keep the content more on the voice and the video. But, whatever it is, it's good that we've got choices. It's really good that we've got choices. And that's the great thing of innovation. Someone will lead for a period and then someone else will come up with a market busting opportunity. So, I have to say, we know the names that have come to the fore that many of us never even heard of before.
Yeah, absolutely. What issues do you think people need to consider now and in the future when it comes to sort of developing a unified comms strategy for sort of hybrid working?
I think people need to think a bit more than just about the technology. Okay, it's got to be able to do the job that you want to do. So you can go through a spec of this is what we want to do, go through it. And most of them are probably going to do what you need it to do most of the time. But I do think you've got to think a lot about the people. There's been a lot of people. This has been a very difficult time for a lot of people in many, many different ways. And coming out of that, it's not just looking at the technology. It's, I think we've got a great opportunities where we've got the blank slate, right? This is the way that we used to do it, which is probably a throwback actually to the Industrial Revolution, where people had to go to the mill for 8 o'clock in the morning, sign on, right? And then you work till lunchtime, then you have your break, and that's lasted for that since then. No longer. We've been forced to try a different way, which is great. People, hybrid working, flexible working was a term people use. I don't necessarily want to do 9 to 5. I want to do 10 till 6. I want to do 8 till 4 and so forth. That's much more. The boundaries have been pushed. Not whether they're boundaries. It's just different ways have been experimented and tried. But again, working with people, something that works for you, Mark, as well as for me. And we don't have to be sitting across the desk from each other to get our work done anymore.
Yeah.
That's been broken. You don't have to be within eye contact. Maybe a bit of eye contact, we keeping a team together is a bit of a challenge a lot of the time. So, especially when you're growing a team, singing the silly song when you pass the coffee machine that creates a conversation, or, you ask the newbie that's joined the team, or, did you watch the Masters at the weekend or whatever?
Yeah.
Could you see a golf tee on their desk or something like that? That's gone. That's gone because there are very few accidental ways to engage with people. So you have to make an effort, and so the technology is part of it without a doubt, but it's also how are you going to structure the way that the team interact and work with each other using the technology, the people, but it's people that are important.
You mentioned people, you mentioned culture, you mentioned earlier about recruiting people and growing, which is something very close to my heart, being a sales and marketing agency. How have you had to adapt and to maintain that culture over the last year? Because you said 28% growth, fantastic, kudos to you. But increasing people that maybe haven't met you personally, or they might have their teams or Zoom meetings, how have you dealt with that? Because that must have been a challenge.
As I say, you don't get the opportunity to ask them about something that might be of interest to them, which is part of the team building thing. So it's a big challenge. Now we started off with quizzes and so forth once a week, and it's voluntary. Apart from maybe if you've got a big announcement, that's what it does. So we have a thing called the lock-in, which is a throwback to being locked into a pub and so forth. So 4:30 on a Friday afternoon is the Akixi lock-in. Anyone can join, typically with glass in hand, because it's fast approaching beer o'clock at that time, and talk about anything that's happening in the week. And that's but it's a specifically set up time to talk rubbish, to talk anything, to do get away from the stuff. So these things which happened just incidentally and accidentally, you now have to put an effort into play. Unfortunately, this week I think it's going to be completely hijacked by what silly things are happening in the football industry at the moment. Now, I can't stand football, but I think what's happening, crazy as it is, I think this Friday's lock-in is going to be dominated by that. But that's illustrative of you need those times to go beyond the physical. You come to work and you do this, and that's what your job is.
But as a CEO now, not now, you've been a CEO for a long time, but as a CEO now in this new normal, how do you think you're going to manage your time in terms of, video meetings, going face to face, customers, or how do you manage your time currently? Is it are you seeing some more video meetings? Are you going to see more returns of customer calls, or are you seeing customers actually saying, do you know what, we actually want to see you again?
I think we are starting to talk about coming out soon because the light is at the edge of the tunnel, subject to who knows what might happen. Don't count chickens. But but it's not normally in the previous normal. The meeting was very much right. When can you get to London? When can you come to the office? When can I come and see you? That was the default. That's no longer the default now. That's no longer the default. So it means actually you can much more dynamically say, tell you what, can we meet up maybe just 30 minutes on a bridge like this or whatever tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
So companies are able to be much more dynamic that way. But there are still times when you can't beat, you just can't beat being face to face in certain environments. I mean, I think, a lot of the business we used to do, meeting new companies and so forth, was done at trade shows and that. Wow, what's happened to that over the past?
Yeah, what do you think about that? Think they'll go trade shows?
Oh, that's a really good question, Mark. I hope not. But I think, these virtual trade shows that we're having now, they're not cutting the same thing. You don't have to attend. The good thing about the trade show was actually there was an event that you had to be there at that time.
Yeah.
Now you might want to take in the presentations and so forth and the discussions afterwards. But then all of a sudden, yeah, I'm going to plan on doing that. I can't attend because I've got something else on. But when do you actually get round to then replaying that? Yeah. So there's going to be, I think there has to be a place. The format's going to have to change. But we're humans, you know. We perform optimally when we're literally in the vicinity of other humans.
Because the trade shows, they were, you know, without completely bombing them out, they were expensive, weren't they? They were really, really expensive to attend and host. And I was thinking InfoSec and all these other ones, or Microsoft in Vegas. I was thinking, will people start doing these again? I'm not so sure they will. I don't know. Yes, it's better to do business in person, but it was a lot of money, and the industry sort of adapted quite quickly without them.
Well, it's the same scenario that the commercial real estate people are facing at the moment. You know, was it Ernst & Young literally this last week or so have actually declared they're going to be virtually officeless over the. I mean, you think those companies, how much can add to the bottom line? So yeah, a large proportion of our marketing expenditure each year were trade show attendances. So something has to be done to replace that. Maybe they're much shorter events, maybe they're different format and so forth. But yeah, that's another genie out the bottle. You know, do you really need to attend these? Yeah, the most expensive real estate, what you pay for a square foot of carpet for 2 or 3 days. Something
needs to change. How do you think the hybrid working in the future will impact the contact center industry and the environment?
Right, now, interestingly, I've got a view on this. Now,
good.
the contact center industry has always talked about teleworking. That's what it used to be called, Mark. Teleworking, yeah. Okay. And for years, and we're talking about, as I say, my previous business, Swan Solutions, was all about doing these metrics, but for PABXs that were on premise. And your contact center was literally a room, could have been 5 people, could have been 500 people, a large room, right? But people were based there. No more. Teleworking is the norm now. That is the way that a lot of people work. Now, there are also locations that were potentially good locations to have your call center, because there were offices set up for providing that sort of service. There were good availability of staff demographics that lend themselves to that. And that, I mean, a lot of call centers had big issues with people that would work for this insurance company this week, but slightly better offer next week. Down the road, they'd work for the other insurance. You know, that's a classic in that environment. Now, my spare room is a really good call center location, as is that garden office you've got in your back garden, as well as the place the other side of Stoke, and even a friend of mine that's gone to Kathmandu is a great call center location. That's the way it is moving forward. But call centers are always into teleworking. Teleworking is just the way that, you call it hybrid working, whatever, is now.
Do you think, you mentioned about talent at different locations, do you think that salaries now will become different? I.e., let's say, if I've got real estate in London, and I'm actually thinking about it myself, Bart, thinking, right, I want to get a London office now. A small operation, maybe a good time, but it is expensive. The salaries are more expensive in London. Do you think now people are going to suddenly start thinking, do you know what? People can work from anywhere. I'm going to start recruiting people from Bradford and Scotland and all over the place. And because they never really did that before. They had territories, but if you were a London operation, you wanted people within an hour of London, and they were travelling in, and it was more expensive to live around here.
Absolutely. I mean, to be fair, not necessarily price driven, but we have actually started recruiting. We have some of the latest recruits we've had are not going to be able to get to the office at all frequently, because we've embraced this. Okay, this is the way of the new world. Now, is it going to affect salary? I think depends which side. If you're optimistic or pessimistic, some people will say, well, actually it means the company can be more profitable because it hasn't got to spend the real estate. It can have reduced space, and I think there's going to be some need for offices. But do we need a desk for every single person that works for us? Yeah, or can we actually share some desks, call it hot desking, whatever you want to call it, or can we have, there's going to be some of these companies, I don't want to mention any brands and so forth, that have been strong in the rent an office type facilities. I mean, hotels have taken a huge hit over, but actually one opportunity that they've got coming out of this is, hang on a minute, appealing more widely to the general office business community and renting out space for meeting space. It's not just, there's going to be more and more reasons to do that. So, yeah, without a doubt, things will evolve. Whether it's going to impact it, like anything, there are always winners and there are always losers in every change. The good thing is there's change, because without change, it just becomes a little bit stagnant and just stay the same. So some people will win. And yeah, maybe people that couldn't relocate to London to take that London job, which has been paid at a higher rate, can now apply from Bradford, from Edinburgh, from Kathmandu.
Yeah.
And maybe the chap that had, the company. So the company should be more, if it takes that decision, should have higher profitability as a consequence of reduced operating costs.
Yeah.
So it can maybe, look wider for the right people, rather than just being the people that are right and local.
Yeah, definitely. And it is an opportunity for companies, smaller organizations as well, that maybe having a great brand that can actually attract better people, because they can just live far away. Because we're all in that market before. So, well, if they've got to live within 45 minutes of the office, or we're not even seeing them, now that's gone out of the window. So that I do agree with that.
And you don't necessarily need to own title of that space. I mean, it's a crazy thing. Even if you've got meeting rooms, they're never going to be busy 100% of the office time. But actually, you've got something that can be a shared resource between other companies.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of sense there.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm not going to say you're Mystic Meg or anything, Bart, but I'm going to ask for a prediction over the next 6 months. Where do you see the IT channel going, and where do you see, as we come out of lockdown, or we hopefully come out of lockdown and we end this dramatic pandemic we've had, where do you see the IT channel going, and what trends do you think we'll see?
I think that some of the largest trends that we'll see are not necessarily technological. We've had a big, huge technological upgrade. I think commercially, companies are going to want to work more effectively with companies that can be more flexible with the way that they charge and pay and produce their services. Having an elastic band way of consuming products and services would have made it much easier for some companies to still stay alive rather than go down over this period.
Yeah.
If you can flex, okay, today I've got 20 people in the office and I need 20 of these things, right? But actually, if things get bad or whatever, I need to bring that down to 4 or 5 people. I only want you charging me for 4 or 5 people's worth of stuff. Then it means that when we come out the other side of this, and I'm ready to come back to 20, and actually maybe even have managed to save enough to be able to keep the business thriving, so I can take that to 50. You work with me on that basis, Mark, as a business, and we're going to go along for a great ride on a long-term basis. But if you're still holding me to pay for 20 people's worth of stuff, when I haven't got the customers paying for that, now, it's not something that a lot of traditional technologies have been able to do. On a CapEx basis, traditionally, you bought the machine that was this size because that's how big you anticipated the widgets that you produced needed to be. And then all of a sudden, if you had a big order come in or so forth, that machine wasn't big enough, so you had to buy 2 of them.
Yeah.
And then you didn't get the many orders for another year or so. So then you've got 2 machines when actually half of the first one would do. If you are a supplier of goods or services that can marry your delivery and charge structure to your customers in a way that aligns with their customers' demand on them, you've got a win-win-win, actually. Not just a win for you and the supplier, but a win for the supplier and the end user. I think that is what's going to come out of this. The technology is a facilitator for that, but companies are going to be much more critical of, well, hang on a minute, what commitment do you need from me? And what happens if, because who saw this one coming? Who saw that? You know, and it's the governments, I mean, my God, what they've done, you know, but that can't last forever. We're going to pay for that somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. But you've been a great guest. Thanks so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.